religion. So you like preach, I don't know, like you might preach something and it might be somebody might be offended by it.
Okay.
Right, so they'll go, oh, that's hate crime. But then but the Muslim would go, no, but it's within my religion though. It's not hate crime. It's freedom of speech. So it's like. It works both ways. I'm quite sure. But then if that person like goes and says something bad to them, if that person in response because they're offended says something bad about Islam, they'll go, oh, you can't do that. That's hate speech. So it's like
and that's what I mean by sometimes the emotions take over most people. Right, so you have to try and suppress the emotion and recognize what the law says and what we can, I don't know, probably the right word is comprehend, what we comprehend of the law. If the law says X, we should control our emotions and align with that, you know, but most people don't, and so that's where you have problems. This is the man of the law, he knows the law very well.
Yeah, exactly. So
Who are you talking to?
You're the law man. Come on in.
I was. I was. And I had enough of it.
He was talking about freedom of speech,
big,
and different people using it to their advantage.
Yeah.
And you know, what does Islam says on freedom of speech? That was the discussion that I had earlier.
All right, I see. Okay. Yeah.
So we thought we'd bring you in.
I will agree.
Sometimes it's not like you get it spontaneous. You don't necessarily, you can't necessarily get brought into a discussion, and you just
start an opinion.
Because I know he's familiar with the matter.
It's an interesting question. I think it's not resolved.
Sorry, what was the question? If you don't mind me asking.
It's just like. Freedom of speech is a really interesting question because like some people are saying that you should have pure freedom of speech. You should be able to say anything you want, because if the moment you start saying oh sorry but that particular thing that you just said there offends me, therefore you can't say it. There's a problem because all different people are offended in different ways. So the question is then who defines what is offence? That's the problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the argument. No, not argument.
Yeah. No. I fully understand. You know, one of the issues that one always thinks about when we talk about the phrase or the terms freedom of speech, as you rightly pointed out, are we talking about an absolute freedom, or are we talking about a restrictive or a restricted element of freedom, or should that freedom of speech be should it entail a legal framework? Yeah, that is what we would have to look at. You see, if I were to, it's very odd here. Yeah, if I were to start saying all albinos should be killed.
Right, yeah. That would be pure freedom of speech.
It is.
Yeah.
But the law doesn't stop me from doing it.
The law doesn't stop you.
If the law doesn't stop me from doing it,
if we have pure freedom of speech, then it wouldn't stop you from doing that.
Now, society is determining certain things which we would be allowed to say, and certain things which we would not be allowed to say. But the reasoning behind that would be the objective of society as a whole. That's what it is. You see, if I know that somebody is wanting to create a law which is going to clearly discriminate against a certain group of people, should I agree with it? The answer usually would be no, but we would have to look at the mechanisms that are provided to us to be able to either stop it or have a debate about it. Now, freedom of speech, it's very odd. It seems to have been hijacked in recent times, to be honest, from my perspective anyway. Do I have the right to offend you?
Well, if I believe in true freedom of speech, then yes, you have the right to offend me. Yeah.
But you have qualified it by using the term if.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Run away.
Oh, all right. Yeah, don't worry. Yeah. So basically, we say if. Yeah.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I don't even know your name.
Paris.
Paris.
Yeah.
I can't forget that name. I'm Shabir.
Shabir,
Yeah.
that's
Basically, Paris. You see, if the word "if" automatically tells us, okay, we have already put a boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah. The question is, why have we put a boundary?
Well, because I'm not taking a position. I'm just interested.
Exactly.
In the argument.
We all would not take a position,
Yeah.
but if it is going to directly affect us
Yeah.
as individuals,
Yeah.
we would take an interest in it.
I think, all right, personally, I think you should have the right to offend me because it's hard to. It would be very hard to. I think you can't draw the line where offence starts.
Agreed.
Yeah.
However, if I were to take this line of reasoning to its conclusion,
Yeah.
I can actually state, look, if I am having a conversation with you,
Yeah.
and in the process of the conversation, I need to mention certain things which are likely to cause offense, yes, I would beforehand apologize to you and say to you, Paris, look, I'm sorry, I'm about to say something, but I'm saying it in the context of the discussion.
Oh yeah.
Or I just introduce it and start mouthing away. Suddenly you are going to think, wait a minute,
Well, it's the
excuse
difference
me.
between somebody who's got class and somebody who's just a totally uncouth character, isn't it?
Exactly. You are spot on, Paris. Yeah, you're right. Now the question then is this. Should we adopt systems, processes, the kind of education which will raise the standard of the human being in terms of class? Or should we allow a free-for-all and somewhere along the line something may happen and the wrong crowd takes over?
Okay.
Which one would we prefer?
That's a tricky question because obviously the way you frame the question,
Yeah.
it sounds like the answer is already in the question. That it really, obviously, it's the first one, but then the problem there is that the guy, then who's deciding? Who decides how to manage the crowds
Yeah.
of people and decide what is class?
Agreed with you, Paris. You see, however, if we were to say whoever is already deciding anyway
Okay.
has the ability to decide, would that be a problem?
Okay, so you mean establishment? So the people who
Well,
are in charge.
we are governed by the establishment, we are governed by the rules that dictate how I say. For example, if I walked into a group of Africans and I used pejorative words,
Sure.
what would happen?
You get beaten up.
But if there was a police officer next to me, what would happen?
Probably like.
Yeah? There's a likelihood I may say something which would get me arrested.
Right.
Now, I go there and I come out with all sorts of expletives, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. Someone is going to say, this guy's lost it.
Right.
But is it a reasonable defense for me in those circumstances?
No, I mean, again, it's the scenario you're giving is like
A realistic one.
obviously if you walk into a group of people and you use pejorative terms, then if they get offended, then it's at your own risk.
Okay.
And
So,
the problem is that, and I understand, so somebody needs to police the
agreed.
people.
But here,
saying.
agreed. But here is the problem, Paris.
Yeah.
If a group of people collectively, and I'm bringing it directly to what we are discussing,
Yeah.
if a group of people are just considered to be terrorists for no other better reason than people thinking that they are terrorists, yeah? What kind of negative impact is it going to have on the people?
Well, people will believe that group of people are terrorists.
Absolutely. Now, history informs us that if enough is said about a group of people,
Sure.
to the extent that people are then desensitized towards that group, you will find that no matter what kind of atrocities are committed against them, people won't find it a problem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? But you know what, interestingly enough, that all started as a result of speech.
Oh, okay.
The question is, what do we do now?
Okay, now I hear your questions are leading questions, like in a way, like I understand what you're saying. So it needs to be policed, because otherwise, I mean, the people need to be policed in what they say, because otherwise, if we just start saying this group of people are like X, Y, and Z over and over again, then that group of people could become victimized or seen as the other, seen as not.
They will be seen as the potential criminals.
Potential criminal. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So who comes in, and then who decides what
exactly
we cannot say.
Yeah. However, the concern, and it's a right concern that you are raising, look, no matter how brilliant the rule is, no matter how brilliant the law is, okay, the issue is this: you can't govern everybody.
Yes.
There's going to be some, we call them idiots. There's going to be one idiot who is going to say, hey, you use pejorative words. But the question is, then it comes back to, you know what I said about raising the bar. Yeah? If we were to have the right kind of teaching, what will we expect the result to be?
If we had the right kind of teaching?
Yeah. Again.
You mean if we do come in and we do decide?
Yeah, and we decide we want to raise the bar.
Well, okay, I'll give you an example then of how it could go wrong.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned this today actually, and it wasn't even in my head, but somebody said that in France it's illegal, it's an offence to deny the Holocaust.
Yes.
So it's a good example. What if you just deny the Holocaust?
Agreed. However, what we need to consider here, they didn't just wake up one day and say, okay, it's a criminal offense to deny the Holocaust.
No.
Do you know how much pressure was put
on them to do that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, worldwide. Yes? Why should one deny something that is not directly observable? Or why should one accept something that is not directly observable? Right. In this case, the Holocaust. Yeah? I'm saying it from both sides. I'm not saying I'm denying or accepting. The point is, it started off with a group of people who said, look, allowing this to continue the way it is leading to the potential persecution of a group of people. Yeah? And so, if you allow this kind of narrative to continue, it is going to potentially cause yet more problems for this group of people. Where are you going? Oh, yeah. Don't worry.
Bye.
Go ahead. Yeah, so they said. I know, don't worry. Yeah, so the question is, they knew that, look, unless and until it is criminalized, there is the potential. But you know what? Was that not just speech?
It wasn't just speech.
The denial, wasn't it just speech? If I deny the Holocaust, it's mere speech.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah? But it has become criminalized.
Because you're saying what it leads to.
Because the reasoning, you see, you know, when laws are being enunciated and laws are being passed, there is a reasoning behind it for why they need to adopt the law for the benefit of society. Yeah? If we look at it on a cursory note, why would you ban somebody saying, I deny the Holocaust? Why would you make it a criminal offense? There was reasoning behind it. And it's the narrative that I was discussing. Yeah? If you are going to constantly talk about a group of people in a negative way, people will start getting desensitized. Yeah? And a classic example, honestly, Paris, if you click on any YouTube video, or in fact, forget that, any of the news, for example, Yahoo, the website, if it carries a story about a Muslim, I can guarantee you the majority of the posts, of the comments, are talking about killing, destroying, deporting, totally negative. Wait a minute, it has nothing to do with the rest of the human beings who consider themselves to be Muslims. But the narrative has started. And I'll be honest with you, it is a dangerous narrative. Yeah? You are vilifying a group of people constantly to such an extent that now people seem to become desensitized to any atrocities being committed against Muslims. So basically, just as an example, so although when people say freedom of speech, I totally agree, yes, but you know what, like everything else, responsible people will use it in an appropriate way. Irresponsible people, well, that is why we have laws to try and govern and contain this minority who seem to think that they have their way and it doesn't matter about the rest of humanity. So although, you know, a lot of people talk about freedom of speech, which is, like I said, I totally agree with it. I have no issue. I would love to have the freedom to talk about things, but not to the extent where it might potentially cause harm to the other person. Yeah, like I said earlier on, if me and Paris are having a conversation and I am about to say something, then it behoves me to say to Paris, look, I'm about to say something, it may sound offensive, I don't mean it that way, but it is in the context of the discussion. Yeah, so it is vitally important to retain freedom of speech. Vital. Look, exchange of ideas can possibly be clamped down on if any kind of unreasonable control is put on the freedom of us being able to say what we want. You see, there's a difference here. The majority of the people talk about freedom of speech in an absolute sense. That's what they do. Oh no, we must have the right. Okay. Do you have the right? Yes. Can I also have the same right, but I will take it 2 times worse than you do? Then I will be told, no, you can't do that. Why not? Because we forget that when we are talking about freedom of speech, it is and has to be within the law. Yeah? So, like I said, if I were to say something which I was not aware was illegal, the police officer will still arrest me. If it went to court, in mitigation, I can say, look, honestly, I didn't know. And some statements, witnesses confirming I genuinely didn't know. But you know what? I'm going to have to apologize.
What about when, for instance, when we had laws like blasphemy laws, like
yes.
even in the past here,
Yes.
and or like when we had laws, when we had views of how the universe works, like how the sun and the earth was related, you know, which one was the center, and then people like Galileo came along and they said something contrary.
Yes.
They were people who blasphemed against the church.
So it was
people who denied the current world.
The world view.
Of the universe.
Yes.
They would be told that that's hate speech.
Yes.
They would be informed that that's hate speech, and they would be told they're not allowed to say that.
Yeah. You know what? You're right. But you know what? Like I said earlier in Paris, you know, restricting it to such an extent, you know, curtails the exchange of ideas. That's what I said earlier on. And the very thing you have mentioned is entirely appropriate in the context of the discussion. You see, when Galileo talked about the universe, or when these others talked about the model not being the way the church saw the model, okay, the power of the church meant that they were able to get these people imprisoned.
Yeah.
Yes? But that was not even any, to be respectfully, Paris, it had nothing to do with freedom of speech.
No.
It had to do with ideas, the way they held. Yeah? Now, watch this. He said, you know what, I think the world is not the earth is not the center of the universe.
Yeah.
They are saying, no, scripture says it is as an example. Yeah? Did he say something? Yes, he did. Now, was his ability to analyze things curtailed? The answer is yes. Yes? But the idea of freedom of speech at that time was, I would suggest, non-existent. Okay? At that time, there were certain governing bodies that had an absolute authority. Yeah? As things progressed, and as we found out more, there was a shift, from what you would call the religious governance, it moved away into what we call secular governance.
Right.
Yeah? However, the mistakes historically we see, we do not want to repeat. Yeah? So when the idea of freedom of speech came, I can, in our contemporary history, I can trace it back to the time Salman Rushdie released his book Satanic Verses. Okay? Then it all broke. People were saying he should not be allowed to write this book. The book should be banned. The book should be burned, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Okay? Then started a momentum. Wait a minute, you can't stop us from writing what we want.
Yeah.
You can't stop us from saying what we want.
Yeah.
Excellent. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
However, my view is that if language is going to ultimately extend to a situation where people are going to be killed, as happened in Germany, then we need to reevaluate exactly where we should draw the line.
Yeah, except what about, I understand, I think what you're saying is really clarifies a lot.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
No problem.
I talk about blasphemy, yeah?
Yeah,
Back
sure,
when the
sorry.
church was in the medieval times.
Yes.
If you said something that was blasphemous, that would be deemed as hateful, and it would be deemed as leading people to hell.
Yeah.
Right? So what you're saying, you might get followers, and then those followers are going to go to hell. So it would be deemed as hateful,
Yes.
and therefore you wouldn't be allowed to have that speech.
Yeah.
Now like you said, that's the opposite of freedom of speech.
Yes.
They didn't have freedom of speech.
Yes.
So
You know what? I would agree with you. Sorry.
yeah, no, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I would agree with you. You see, even today,
Yeah.
if I were to say, do you know what? I don't think there is a God.
Okay.
Yeah? If I say that, then of necessity,
Yeah.
any attribution to a man considered to be a prophet of God
Yeah.
also is out of the equation, isn't it? Logically speaking. If I don't accept the notion of a creator, then the very idea of accepting prophets goes out of the window also. Okay? Now in certain places, that would be considered to be blasphemy.
Yes.
It would.
Yeah,
Okay?
blasphemy.
Now, we have moved away. Yes? Thankfully, our understanding of how the mental processes work have vastly improved. Yeah? We have got a situation where our understanding of what has been brought to us, yeah, even as a believer, okay, if we look at the evidence itself and the information, you will find license is given to consider all these questions in an appropriate manner. However, if people are to misunderstand and misuse the rules, then you must have something that will be able to stop that. Yeah? So, for example, in the systems here also, and it is a good example to use, the legal system here, if it had a rule and we subsequently found that the rule seems to be illogical, unreasonable, then there will be a process to have it repealed. Yeah, that is what happens in the United Kingdom. Yeah, likewise, you look at the law of blasphemy. Yeah, and I say this respectfully. Whoever comes to me to suggest to me that look, this speech or this statement is clearly blasphemous, I would have something to say on a legal footing. Because these questions are related to legal elements. Yeah, the law of blasphemy, the law, we call it the law. Okay, but legal systems are very nuanced. Yeah,
Secular.
all legal laws.
Even the ones that are not secular.
Even those, like I said, if you look at the evidence, yeah, and assess it accordingly, you will find they are very, very nuanced. And respectfully, Paris, legal training is required to be able to decipher some of this. But you know what's happening nowadays? Lay people are picking it up and they think they are experts, formulating reasoning on it, totally flawed, and then start exhibiting in front of people.
I see.
Are you following? So when a person comes and says, sorry, what are you on about here?
Yeah.
9 times out of 10 Paris, they get emotional, they all get heated up. Oh, you're a terrorist, and off they go. that's what happens. But honestly, and I said this in humility, I have a legal background, and I have looked at all this, the blasphemy rules in Islam. I've looked at the old blasphemy laws here.
Medieval.
Yes, the medieval ones are also here. And you can see a clear trend that, look, whoever was interpreting this had got it totally wrong.
Right.
Yeah? Now, it's not easy to say depending on which part of the world you are in.
Yeah.
I grant that. However, like I said earlier on, we need to raise our boundaries collectively as human beings, yeah, and reassess all the evidence that we have and consider it on the information that is available today.
Yes.
Yeah, and you will find, honestly, Paris, I don't think there is any reasonable Muslim, yeah, as a Muslim I'm saying this, as a reasonable Muslim who is going to curtail freedom of speech the way we are talking about it. Like I said, there are confines, there are legal parameters, okay, beyond which you can discuss and say what you want. However, there is what you would call an overriding principle from an Islamic perspective. I'm just adding it in. The principle is a very simple and clear one, that whatever you say or do, yeah, make sure you do not hurt the feelings. Now the feelings means subjective, yeah. Do not hurt the feelings of people, yeah. If it is within the law, it's a separate issue. But even outside that, as a human being, the most important thing that I must consider is my fellow human beings, and by extension to all the rest of what we would call creation. That is